Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to take your seats, my name is Peter Knights. I'm the CEO of WILDaid, and we're really pleased to be here today to launch this national campaign with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to increase awareness of illegal wildlife trafficking and to hopefully reduce the demand for illegal wildlife products. I'd like to first of all introduce Roosevelt Council Jr., the interim general manager of the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, and thank them for hosting us here today. Roosevelt.
Thanks, Michael. To Michael, who is the CEO of WILDaid, Michael Knight, to WILDaid Ambassador Michael Cutliff of The Walking Dead, to Special Agent in Charge Luis Santiago of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Southeast Region, Atlanta Port Director Carrie Davis, and ladies and gentlemen. So on behalf of Mayor Kasim Reed and the entire Hartsfield-Jackson team, welcome to the world's most traveled airport. Today is an important day here at the airport. We are hosting two organizations, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and WILDaid, as they usher in an important public awareness campaign against illegal wildlife trade. Globally, wildlife trafficking is a $10 to $20 billion a year industry, ranking just behind human trafficking, weapons trafficking, and drug trafficking. And the United States is one of the largest illegal markets in the world. This trade is often run by dangerous criminal syndicates who traffic animal parts such as rhino horns, elephant ivory, and tiger bones. The consequences have actually been quite devastating. Animals that were once thriving are now disappearing. The African elephant population, for instance, fell by nearly 1/3 between 2007 and 2014. In the past 21 years, the lion's population has plunged by more than 43%, while poaching considered being the major leading causes of this reduction. Hartsfield-Jackson stands adamantly against illegal wildlife trade. As the world's most traveled airport and a major international point of entry, our inspectors work tirelessly each day to keep such products out of this country. But there's more we can and must do to contain this. This campaign will raise awareness about this illegal industry and educate Americans on illegal wildlife products. Education is critical here, as some consumers can be participating in the illegal animal trade without even knowing it. So let's learn more about trafficking so you can help us put a stop to this. Now let me introduce you to Special Agent Luis Santiago of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Southeast Region. He will talk to us more about the role of the United States government in combating wildlife trafficking.
Thank you all for coming here today. It's an honor for me to represent the service at the launch of this campaign. I want to begin by thanking the leadership and staff of the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and Mr. Roosevelt Council for hosting us here today and for all you do all year round to support our wildlife inspectors. Also thanks to the U.S. Customs Service and the Border Protection, our partners at the ports, and the Atlanta Port Director, Carrie Davis. We work closely with the CBP to interdict illegal wildlife shipments. I also want to thank Peter Knights, from the Executive Director of WILDaid, and everyone at WILDaid for the work that they have done to put into bringing this campaign to fruition. We are excited to continue this partnership and look forward to many years of collaboration. This campaign features the infographic you will see shortly, as well as new public service announcements with WILDaid ambassadors, the cast of Walking Dead, and Michael Cutliff. All of these outreach efforts are vitally important to informing the public, and their appearance comes at a crucial time here. The dramatic increase in the scale of wildlife trafficking we have witnessed during the past decade has had a devastating effect on some of the world's most iconic wildlife species. In a recent 7-year period, we lost over 144,000 African savanna elephants to poaching for ivory with some of the most renowned protected areas littered with carcasses. South Africa alone has seen poaching escalate from only 13 rhinos poached in 2007 to more than 1,000 rhinos lost in each of the past 3 years. This slaughter is solely for rhino horn, sold by weight for a price higher than gold in places like China, Vietnam, and even here in the US. Thousands of lesser well-known species, from sea turtles to pangolins and tortoises to cacti, are suffering the same devastating fate in this illegal traffic. The current carnage is orchestrated by organized criminal enterprises across the globe. They have branched out into wildlife trafficking because there is a lot of money to be made, and the risks are low when compared to trafficking in other illegal enterprises like drugs, weapons, or other contraband. We have to change that equation by strengthening the consequences for wildlife trafficking crimes and by reducing the consumer demand that makes wildlife trafficking so lucrative. For those of us here in the United States, the turning point was President Obama's executive order on combating wildlife trafficking. With the Department of State and the Department of Justice and the ports with CBP, we are leading the implementation of this government-wide strategy. We are developing a robust legal framework as well as investigative, prosecutorial, and judicial capacity to apprehend and prosecute traffickers, seize the proceeds of the crimes, and apply penalties that deter and prevent others from committing wildlife crimes. Operation Crash, our ongoing criminal investigation of rhino horn and elephant ivory smuggling, has to date led to 41 arrests, 30 convictions, and the seizure of tusks and horns with street values exceeding $75 million. In addition to wildlife crimes, the defendants also have been charged with money laundering, tax evasion, falsifying documents, mail fraud, and bribery. These recent convictions, along with dozens more in other cases, demonstrate that we can succeed in disrupting and dismantling criminal rings while deterring other criminals. Last year, our National Fish and Wildlife Forensic Laboratory examined more than 2,700 individual items of evidence in support of 370 wildlife crime investigations. We have created a detection dog program at 7 major U.S. ports. Canines such as Viper and Wildlife Inspector Amir Lawal, which are here today, and canines from our partnering agencies with CBP, increase the ability of our 123 wildlife inspectors to examine large volume of international cargo across the country. Their discoveries and those of our wildlife inspectors continue to provide valuable leads for our special agents to pursue. In terms of international cooperation, last year, to lead the fight against global wildlife trafficking, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Law Enforcement created a dedicated international operations unit. We recently selected a new service special agent to serve as an attaché in the U.S. Embassy in Libreville, Gabon, joining 5 other attachés at key locations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Each of these senior special agents work closely with host nations and regional law enforcement to investigate wildlife crimes, assist with forensics and analysis of evidence, and build local enforcement capacity. They have dramatically expanded the reach and effectiveness of our law enforcement program, while also improving coordination and communication among law enforcement agencies across their regions. Our attachés and other special agents have instructed game wardens, wildlife law enforcement personnel, and others in countries like in Asia, Africa, and Latin America in counter wildlife trafficking techniques, forensics and crime scene investigations, and other subjects in the wildlife crime. Although enforcement is a key component of our strategy, we cannot simply arrest our way out of this problem. Building range, transit, and consumer country capacity is vitally important in this fight, giving range nations and local communities the education, training, and resources they need to stand up for wildlife. We are doing that now through regional programs and multinational species conservation funds. Last year alone, we awarded more than $21 million in grants and cooperative agreements, matched by an additional $33 million supporting 141 wildlife trafficking-related projects in 48 partner countries. Funded projects provided the basic field gear and training for ranger-led anti-poaching patrols, as well as training for community member involvement in conservation activities. They work to spur wildlife-related economic development, helping local communities see wildlife as an asset to be conserved rather than exploited. It is equally vital to tackle the consumer demand side of the equation, which brings us to our partnership with WILDaid. The domestic demand reduction campaign we are launching here today and later today in Los Angeles will empower U.S. consumers to make informed decisions and to persuade them not to purchase wildlife products that may be illegal. A recent WILDaid survey showed that 80% of Americans said that they are wildlife lovers, but 80% also said that they know little to nothing about wildlife trafficking. What the U.S. public does know about wildlife trafficking is largely limited to information about elephants, tigers, and rhinos. And public is also less familiar with the illegal activities related to other type of trafficking, sort of like the ones involving exotic birds, live reptiles, domestic species like American black bear, turtles and tortoises, and even some plant species. Make no mistakes, if demand exists, someone will try to supply it. This is not just an international problem, it is our problem as Americans as well. The United States is one of the world's largest consumer of wildlife products, both legal and illegal. A significant percentage of these products are destined for the United States consumers or pass through our ports on their way to other parts of the world. This is our fight as global citizens because the choices we make here at home and in our travels around the world have a direct impact on the well-being of wild populations of elephants, rhinos, tigers, and many other imperial species. This campaign drives the message home. Our choices, your choices, matter. Millions of travelers will see these public service announcements on their way through Atlanta, LAX, and other large airports. They will see these images and realize that they have both a stake in this fight and also a role to play in determining its outcome. This campaign is a vital component in the worldwide effort to stop the illegal killing of the world's wildlife. Working together at multiple levels and with the help of consumers, we can succeed in making sure wild populations of elephants, rhinos, tigers, and many other species continue to roam free and wild. Thank you for coming here today. Your efforts on helping us spread the word and is essential in the broadening of the reach of this campaign. I want to thank all of our upcoming speakers who have taken their valuable time to support our campaign. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Peter Knight, the Executive Director of WILDaid.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you very much. And I just say we all appreciate the work the Fish and Wildlife Service does. As you can tell, I'm not from here originally, although I'm an American citizen now. And I have had the privilege of working in over 45 countries on these issues. And I can tell you that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is the most professional agency in the world dealing with this. So they all deserve our support. Thank you. So WILDaid is quite different from most conservation organizations. We're not scientists. We're not doing anti-poaching work. We're trying to raise awareness of what's happening to the world's endangered species. And we're trying to popularize conservation and at the same time stigmatize consumption of wildlife products. A lot of our work is being conducted in Asia, where generally speaking the awareness is much lower and the law enforcement is certainly much weaker than it is here. And we've managed to see some real changes in China in particular. So in China, the messages you're going to see a bit later have been out on national television. They've been supported with billboard campaigns all over the airports, and with people like Jackie Chan and Yao Ming as our lead spokespeople, we've managed to reduce the consumption of shark fin by 50 to 70% in the last few years. And the price of ivory in the last 2 years has gone down now by more than 50%. So we are seeing some progress in these areas. The reason the United States is such an important market is we are the world's largest economy. No matter what people might tell you, we're still the world's largest economy. And we also have very broad ethnic diversity. So for example, some of the traditional Chinese medicine is consumed by the Asian American community. Some things like turtle eggs are peculiar to the Latino community. And stuff like caviar is mainly consumed by the Anglo community. So because of our diversity and because of the size of our economy, we're a major player in this business. I think there are two kinds of offenders when it comes to wildlife crime. And one is what I would term the professional offender. People like collectors of rare parrots who might smuggle eggs through in special jackets with incubators in them. Collectors of rare reptiles. They're really there trying to get these species. They know exactly what they're doing. They know they're breaking the law, and they're professional smugglers. And then there's people like you and I who might go on vacation somewhere and see some of these wildlife products on sale. Very often these products are openly on sale in these countries. There's no indication that it might be illegal to bring it back into the United States. But those of you that travel frequently know every time we come back we have to sign a customs declaration. And part of that declaration is to declare any wildlife products. Some wildlife products can be imported legally, but they usually require paperwork. And very often people come in without the right paperwork. They import products illegally. And so those are people we want to reach. If you're going to buy a wildlife product abroad, you need to know what you're doing, because many of the things are illegal to bring back in. So the best advice is don't do it unless you're absolutely certain you're doing it legally. So I'm just going to show you now one of the things we're doing for this campaign. It'll involve a large number of public service announcements, billboard campaigns, and social media. We just want to kick off with a short infographic which really gives you some idea of the scope of this trade. as you can see, thank you. As you can see, it really is all creatures great and small, and from rare insects to whalebone products, it literally is every type of animal known to man. And the impact goes beyond just the direct loss of biodiversity in those countries. So, for example, there's a species of porpoise called the vaquita in Mexico now. There's only 73 left. And these vaquita are being caught in the same nets used to catch something called a totoaba, which is a large fish which is used exclusively for its gallbladder, its swim bladder. And these swim bladders are dried and sold to China. And this market came from another species called the bahaba, which was a Chinese species which was endangered by the demand for these dried swim bladders. So the knock-on effects are very significant. I was in Africa this summer, and it's estimated there that an elephant over the course of its 70-year life generates between $1 million and $1.6 million in tourism revenue. And if it's poached, it may fetch a few $1,000s to a few poachers. So there's also an economic effect in the countries where these animals have been taken from. So WILDaid's methodology is not to lecture at schools and things like that. We use mass media to communicate with people. And we've been lucky enough to attract a galaxy of stars as ambassadors to this program. People like Leonardo DiCaprio, Edward Norton, Yao Ming, Jackie Chan, a host of NBA players, Carmelo Anthony. And we're lucky enough today to have Michael Cudlitz with us from The Walking Dead, who's one of our ambassadors. You can see the campaign here. We've got Maggie Q, Lupita Nyong'o, Yao Ming. It really is a diverse group of people that have come together to support this issue. And we generally do these 30-second messages with very high production values, some of which are kind of like Nike ads. And that's our way of trying to convey this message in a very compact and concise way. So before I introduce Michael, I'd just like to show you one of the pieces we've done here in Atlanta, shot here in Atlanta, with the cast of The Walking Dead, one of the most popular TV shows on the planet, as you know. Michael produced this for us. He got his cast members together, and this is the piece that they produced.
Hordes of relentless killers.
It's not a fictional future.
They are here, now.
They're not driven by hunger.
They're driven by money.
Money paid for ivory carvings.
And trinkets.
We can't stop them with force.
More will just follow.
The only cure is to end the demand for ivory.
You can help.
You can help.
Tell your friends and family
To be ivory free.
Be ivory free.
Don't buy, give, or accept any ivory.
and the elephants will survive.
Because when the buying stops...
When the buying stops, the killing can too.
The killing can too.
Thank you. And there's a whole series of ads we did with that, and we're still working with the cast now, but I'd like to introduce one of our most active ambassadors, Mr. Michael Cudlitz. Thank you.
Hi. I'm very honored to be here today. I started work with WILDaid about 6 or 7 years ago. With Peter, I did a voiceover spot for a sort of documentary piece that they were showing to Congress about the effects of shark finning and to impose more legislation to stop that. Since then, my career has changed, and Peter approached me again and said, would I be interested in producing more spots for them, doing more work for them. I'm always hesitant about celebrities being involved in things that they know very little about. I'm not a scientist. I don't work for wildlife conservation. It's simpler than that. I want to live in a world where there's still elephants and rhinoceroses. And Peter showed me some footage of how these pieces of ivory are collected, and it's brutal. You know, a lot of what these men and women are doing out there and the things they're dealing with is it's brutal, and we don't really understand. We just know that we have a necklace that's made out of ivory that we got over in China or overseas, and it was really awesome. Well, because it's illegal to retrieve this ivory, the way it's gotten is they go into reserves. They will typically tranquilize the animal because the gunshots bring the rangers, and they will use machetes and hack the faces off of these animals. Literally hack the faces off them, take the ivory, and then run. The problem with that is about 4 or 5 hours later, these animals come back out of their tranquilized state, and it takes some of them up to 2 weeks to die. It's brutal, and everyone needs to know it's brutal. But the amazing thing is that all we have to do to live in a world where there are still rhinos and elephants and have our children and our children's children be able to see these awesome creatures is just not buy those products. You don't have to put yourself in danger. It doesn't cost you any money. If you have money, you can certainly donate to a cause that you're interested in. But all you have to do is educate yourself, educate your children and your friends as to what not to purchase. It's that simple. We've seen the numbers of elephants and rhinos that are being poached go down. You saw the graphic, 2015, they went down a little bit. We have to just keep doing that, and that is done through education. Peter approached me and asked if I would like to do a piece with The Walking Dead. He said we have a wish list of people we'd like to be involved in the project. I approached everyone in the cast and to see if I could get 1 or 2 of these people. We fulfilled their wish list completely. Everyone in the cast was involved so much that for this time around, we actually had to turn some people down. It's very, very easy for us as the public to make a difference. You know, there are men and women who are, like I said, putting their lives on the line. It's very, very dangerous work to stop this because there's a lot of money involved. I remember the first time I saw an elephant. I remember the first time I showed my kids an elephant. And I remember the first time that I had the awesome opportunity provided by Peter to stand next to an elephant and touch an elephant. And that was the day that that photo was taken. It was amazing. I want elephants to survive. Most people do. It's kind of a no-brainer. I want to thank Peter and everyone in the Fish and Wildlife and Customs for having me here today. I'm very, very proud to be involved with this organization. And like I said, go to stopwildlifetrafficking.org, go to wildaid.org. It's very, very easy to make a difference. All you have to do is educate yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, one we're finding in Asia is that very often it's the children or the grandchildren that are educating their parents about this. So we've had a shark fin trader who now no longer eats shark fin soup himself because his grandchildren have told him not to. So it is all about communication. It's about letting people know what's going on. People kid themselves sometimes. You know, I had people in Asia say, well, the rhinos died of old age and someone's picked up the horn, so what's the problem? That's not how it works. They're being protected and rangers are losing their lives to protect these animals. So once people know, they tend to not go back to these products, but we've got to get the word out there, and anything you can do today would be greatly appreciated. So I'd like to also introduce certainly the furriest fish and wildlife agent I've ever met. We've got John Olfson is going to introduce to us Viper, and this is part of the detection program that goes on for fish and wildlife. Thank you. John.
The United States Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Law Enforcement has 2 main programs. Our Wildlife Inspector program is one where we have uniformed officers, and we have 3 of them right here for demonstration, as well as one here that's one of our canine units. The inspectors are really amazing. They have to be versed in all different forms of wildlife. When we think of wildlife trafficking coming into the U.S., a lot of people think of the whole animal, that entire animal coming in. Well, if you see a big elephant coming in, yeah, you can identify that. All of us can do that. But when you have a very small part or piece, can you identify that? Chuck, will you hold up that bracelet? You know, when you get some people coming into the country and they have maybe a small token on their wrist or something, like the bracelet that Chuck is holding up right now. Does anybody know what that's made of, what that comes from? It looks like just a plastic wound or something like that. That's the hair of an elephant. And trafficking in wildlife products, many times, the public needs to realize is the small trinkets that you're buying overseas and bringing in as well that's unlawful to import. Our inspectors in this region alone, we have 31. We have several different ports, and they work tirelessly to inspect shipments that come in, to interdict the illegal trade. They also have partners, because bottom line, we can't do this alone. That's why we have partners like Michael Cutlitz, the other stars, WILDaid, that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service needs. U.S. Customs and Border Protection is one of those here at Hartsfield. And we work very close with them, and I'd like to make sure we do recognize them as well. They have canine units here as well, and they're a very integral part of what we do. We also have our special agent program. Our special agents are criminal investigators. Those are the ones that work overt as well as covert. They interdict international rings of wildlife coming in. They do their best to do long-term as well as short-term operations, and they work tirelessly, and they also partner with other agencies as well. The past 3.5 years, we've really come about with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service with regards to a canine program. Canines, we have, as Louise said earlier, 7 in the whole nation. One of them out of Miami has come up to join us today, and that's Amir Lawal. He's our canine handler, and his dog, Viper. Viper's a black lab. Most of our dogs on our canine program actually are rescues, so that's also a great thing. And Amir's going to do a demonstration for us of just what kind of capabilities he can do using his canine. I'm going to set that up. One unique feature about our canines in particular with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they have 2 ways to alert. If you have a moving conveyor belt with boxes or luggage on it, they alert by scratching. If you have a piece of luggage or a box and it's stationary, they alert by sitting. Now we've hid in this luggage one item, in particular that's wildlife. Of course our dog wants to go over to the table where there's other wildlife products. Of course he'll go to the wildlife over there. There you go. So he gets a reward, and once the dog would alert, the canine handler, of course, would then inspect the piece of luggage that came in, or whatever item it is, to discover its contents and confirm what's in there. Bag of seahorses. One of the items of wildlife that our canine program is trained to detect. Okay. If the staff could come back up for some questions from the press. Questions?
Do we have any questions?
I don't have numbers per se on Atlanta specifically, but I can tell you it's amazing, number one, the diversity of the different wildlife that come through here. I mean, you saw the pictures of the parrots even. You know, we had a recent case on that where we had parrots smuggled through the airport. But it's amazing just the diversity of the different wildlife that people bring through the airport and that gets smuggled through here and that gets interdicted. I mean, there's different seasonalities. We'll have another part of it too. You have your sea turtle season where you have the eggs in particular that people will try to smuggle in during the season as well. So there's different parts of that. And I apologize, but I don't have the specific numbers on that.
Just to explain kind of relative, I know you said LA's a big one, I imagine New York is big. I mean, is Atlanta, what's the context for doing this in Atlanta?
So New York and LA are the biggest, have the most shipments go through them. But I think one of the things I was surprised by was that how much is transited through the United States, because, you know, for example, to Asia, there's not a lot of direct routes from Latin America to Asia, and a lot of stuff actually comes through the United States. And so with shark fin, for example, we were finding it was coming through California on the way to Asia, because it's not always the shortest route, but sometimes it's the most direct or cheapest airline routes. And so Atlanta, as a very busy airport, is a transit point. You know. There's also that dilemma when you have it, the only figures you really have are seized goods. Now, you can have a lot of seizures because you're good at seizing things, or because there's a lot of trade. And what you hope to see in those patterns is you hope to see an increase in seizures with increased enforcement efforts, and then a drop-off as people then don't use that route because of the detection rates. So no more questions? All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
We'll be around if they have any additional questions afterwards.
If you have any additional questions, we will be around for a little while, and the wildlife inspectors will have the table available here, as well as WILDaid has a table over there too.